Hey, coming soon on this episode, we are going to talk about the coming soon marketing strategy. Are you using it? We're also going to be talking about
Happiness is positive cash flow. This is coming up in three, two, one, go.
So the big question is this: as real estate agents, how do we figure out where and when to cross the finish line of this crazy business? We're told that we need to build a real estate business that supports us after we pay our dues. Well, the truth is that so many agents spend decades looking for the finish line and never find it. And I don't know about you, but we'll be damned if we're doing open houses until we're 70. You have to have passive streams of income in your real estate business if you want to survive. Well, this is exactly what we're talking about right here, right now, on the Passive Real Estate Agent Podcast.
All right, guys. Hey, welcome to the Passive Real Estate Agent Podcast. I'm Anthony Nitz, and
My name is Matt Stewart.
we're going to be talking about some things to help you turn your business into a passive income stream in your real estate business, regardless of what direction you want to take it. It's funny because when I became a real estate agent many moons ago, one of my coaches asked me, said, "Anthony, what's your exit strategy?" And I was like, "Exit strategy, man, I'm 25. What are you talking about exit strategy? I'm going to go out there and crank and make $1 bazillion and just have to decide what island to buy when I'm done." Kind of doesn't work like that. You got to have an exit strategy. And if you don't have one, then you're in trouble. One of the things that I do is, I do listings. That's my specialty. I specialize in listings. I will work with buyers, but primarily it's with listings. And one of the strategies that I use, and I use it quite often, actually almost on every single one of my listings, is the coming soon strategy. And there's a lot of controversy around this. So Matt, I'm not sure if you're familiar very much with this whole thing, because I know you and I we've never even talked about the strategy that I use. But I'm using this coming soon strategy because especially right now with COVID, with all this stuff, it's, everybody's still trying to figure out what exactly is the real estate market going to look like in the upcoming future, and how are we going to market properties, and how are we effectively going to get those things going. And I have done this for a while, and it's worked really well. So what I do, and I'll just kind of tell people what I do and why it works, and then we'll talk about the controversy for a little bit. But actually, let's talk about the controversy first. So Matt, what do you think that the issue would be with a coming soon strategy for real estate agents? Any idea?
Do you have the listing or not? Might come to mind. Is the property, who owns it? I don't know. Is there something to sell?
Yeah, there's something weird about it, maybe.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I'll tell you. So from a consumer standpoint, coming soon, the reason why I use it is because it's a curiosity based marketing strategy, right? Especially in a hot market when buyers they're running around going, "Oh my gosh, there's not enough homes for sale. I've been hunting and hunting and hunting. I can't find something." They see a coming soon sign go up and they go, "Oh my gosh, we got to get in that deal first," right? We've got to get in that strategy or in that property first.
Are you saying that this is kind of a pocket listing type thing, or?
Sort of, but with great caution. Because there is a part of the controversy with doing coming soon or having a pocket listing is that, and why so many MLSs they frown so heavily on doing coming soon or pocket listings, because we are a cooperative industry, right? We work together with other agents. And if you're paying real estate dues to the board of realtors on whatever level, local, state, or national, and then you are also part of a multiple listing service that relies on that cooperative income sharing, that sort of thing. Without that, if everybody did pocket listings, they wouldn't need the MLS and they wouldn't need the associations. Well, guess what goes away then? Dues. Well, the associations and everybody, they need dues, right? That's what they rely on. And so that's one of the reasons why they frown on it. Also, the other reason they frown on it is because it's been proven time and time and time again that when people take pocket listings, they're doing a huge disservice to their sellers. Huge disservice to their sellers. They're basically saying, "Hey, I'm only going to market it to my small sphere of influence instead of the huge buyer pool via the multiple listing service," right? Mm-hmm. And if you're only marketing to a small sphere of influence, the chances are that you are going to end up with a much lower price, right? Because if I'm marketing to, even let's say I've got 50 whole people that I'm working with, the odds of one of them buying it is pretty slim, number one. Number two, the odds of them coming in and going, yeah, we'll take it full price as is, is even slimmer. Yet when I'm marketing to, 30,000 agents who each have 10 buyers that they're working with, you can see how that would be much more effective in doing that. So that's why they look down on it. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about doing a pocket listing and keeping it as a pocket listing. What I do is I create a short window of time, and it usually goes a week, sometimes 2 weeks. It depends on the seller, whether they're ready to sell or to actually have people view their home or not. And by using this strategy, I'll put a link out on the property with a sign writer, that sort of thing, that says, for more details and to get notifications, visit this link. Usually it's the property link, 123mainstreet.com. And then when they go there, it'll have some of the details about the house, and it'll have a registration page. It'll say, hey, you know what? Sign up here to get information on this property. When they sign up on that page, guess what I have now? I have a list of buyers that, in some cases, I'll have 100 buyers. I mean, 100 buyers on a list. Usually, it's not that much usually, somewhere between 20 and 50. But still, 20 to 50 buyers to go right now. And then what I'll do is when the folks are actually ready, I will send it to them and say, hey guys, let's go. Let's get this house, or the house is available for you to see now. Let's set up an appointment. Right now during COVID, we can only do appointments. What I would normally do is an open house where they all have to come during a certain window of time. Creates frenzy and excitement and all that stuff. But until then, we set up the appointments where they're back to back to back to back. And I'm very clear with them. I tell them, so you got 15 minutes to come in, look at the house on your scheduled time. If you're late, then you'll have to wait until either somebody else doesn't show up or, somebody comes in quickly and leaves, then we'll squeeze you in. And that still creates a little bit of excitement and frenzy when these buyers are looking at this house. And the net result is that we get the houses sold a whole lot faster. And the next big question that comes up is, well, what about their agents? What about their agents? Should we cut the agents out of the deal? I don't know. What do you think, Matt?
No. that would be my 2 cents. No, yeah. We want to cooperate with the other agents.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's, it's so funny to me because, there's the saying, and I hate this saying. I really hate this saying, but there's the saying out there that says buyers are liars. And these buyers will show up and you would be amazed. And I'm telling you, Mr. or Mrs. Real Estate Agent who's watching right now, your buyers, unless you have them under an exclusive buyer representation agreement, they will throw you under the bus every single day of the week if it gets them what they want, right? Because it involves money. Because when I do this strategy, I get buyers all the time that say, Anthony, if we just buy through you, can you help us get the property? Okay. Now, the sad part is that there's some agents who would probably, for their own self-interest, push an offer that's not as good as an offer that's represented by an agent, just so that they could double end a deal where there's dual agency allowed. But that's never the case here with me anyways. But I can't tell you how many buyers say that to me. They go, if we help you, and I ask them all, I said, well, do you have an agent? And they go, well, yeah, but we don't need to use them. And then what I just tell them, I say, look, you know what? Here's the deal. It doesn't matter if you use me or you use your buyer's agent. Does not matter. We're going to take the best offer, period. That's what it comes down to. There is no favoritism. I'm not going to give you any secrets that you need to know that nobody else knows, because I represent the seller. That's what I do. My job is to get the highest and best offer. So if you want to put the highest and best offer in, let's go, but I'm just saying that. So I'm sharing this with agents because the coming soon strategy is a strategy that if you do it correctly, you do it with integrity and do it ethically, you could really leverage that. Now, one last thing I want to say about it, though, is like with my MLS anyways, and I don't know about it around the country. I'm here in Southern California. My MLS, they have a, it's fairly new. They call it a clear coming soon agreement and blah, blah, blah. So they understand this, and they recognize that a lot of agents are using a strategy like this, sometimes for good, sometimes for not so good. And now they require us to say that, it says in the multiple listing service, you can do coming soon as a status in the MLS, and it kind of puts people on alert that the coming soon status, or that property is coming soon. However, no marketing is allowed whatsoever. None. The minute you put a sign in the yard, that you put a post on Facebook, that you print a flyer, whatever it is, you have 24 hours to put it into an active status in the multiple listing service. So that I don't necessarily agree with, because when you're doing it the right way, you're working in the best interest of your seller. What that whole thing does is, yes, it prevents people from doing bad things, but let's assume everybody's doing it the right way and ethically. But what it does is it's telling me that I can't work in the best interest of my seller. I can only work in the best interest of my fellow agents so that they don't get cut out of the deal, right? And I don't necessarily agree with that, because my goal 100% of the time is for the best interest of my sellers. And if it involves the other agents, fantastic. Happy to do it. Happy to pay them. No problem whatsoever. It's just when they tell me, that you're messing up, our collaborative relationship and our dues collecting by doing strategies that, potentially hurt other agents' feelings. That's kind of what it comes down to.
Well, it sounds like the way you're doing it is it's in the MLS anyways. So other agents are able to see the listing. It's just a status of, hey, this is coming soon versus it's active, or it's like pre-active, I guess, if that's the way to put it.
And that's what it is now. But before that, recently, literally in the last 2 months, I think, is when they enacted that. And I'm not sure what prompted it really, but it's just within the last couple of months. So I'm working my way around it. In my opinion, though, still the coming soon strategy is a great strategy to use. And one last tip I'll give is that this is also a strategy that I've used on properties that I've tried to get a listing from. So these people are like, well, I don't know. We're talking to 42 different agents, whatever. I go, well, tell you what, let me do this. Let me do a coming soon strategy, right? I don't have a listing agreement with them, none. Okay. But what I'll do is I'll put a sign in their yard. I'll put coming soon on it. I'll point them to my website, and I'll have a page set up just specifically for their property, who, again, I'm collecting that information. Now, what I do is I go to that seller and I say, hey, you're talking to 42 other agents. How many of them have 37 active buyers actively interested in your property right now. You know,
Right.
oh,
Meanwhile, you're the procuring cause of the sale, hopefully.
yeah, potentially. Well, yes. But when they're trying to decide whose listing agreement to sign, they're going to sign mine because I've got active buyers, and I can prove that I've got active buyers, not just a bunch of phony baloney saying, you know, hey, we're
Thinking about maybe someday.
yeah. So the reason I tell you this is because it is a good strategy. There's a lot of really good marketing strategies. You got to think out of the box, and you got to think out of just the small little container that most brokerages are actually giving you, because they're afraid that you're going to hurt somebody's feelings, and again, you're going to, and that whole kumbaya, collaboration thing is going to go out the window. But you know what? Hey, in the end of the day, look, if you have thoughts on this, if you want to do coming soon strategy, if you're interested in learning more about it, or you want to debate it, or you've got some other great information you want to share that we can share in a follow-up episode, call me. I'd love to chat with you about it and get your thoughts on it. You can just go to thepassiverealestateagent.com, and you can get our contact information there and just reach out to us, call or message or text or whatever it is. Love to chat with you about it. But so I don't know. I mean, I'm always thinking of marketing ideas, Matt. I mean, I'm always trying to figure out the best way to do things a little bit different.
I like what you're thinking. It sounds like it's a way to generate interest, giving people a sense of anticipation to the house, and hopefully that'll get more people in there taking a look. And
That's the whole idea, get them in the door. That's the whole idea. So today, you're going to be talking about something about doors.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to talk about the difference between multifamily investing and a single family home. People when they start buying these types of rentals, they'll hopefully buy more down the road. And their idea is they're trying to build equity. They're trying to build cash flow. Name of our podcast here. And the idea is like, which direction should I go? A lot of people I hear about, they want to start small. They'll buy a house, one house, that's what they can afford. And they're really counting on the equity for that house, because somebody moves out, you have to spend money to fix it up, and your potential profits can be gone for the year if someone moves out. I'm a fan of multiple units. Just because you have one person move out, you've got 5 other doors paying your mortgage, paying your insurance, paying your maintenance, and giving you cash flow. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how many doors is enough, and go from there. So I spent, like I said in the last episode, I spent 6 years in property management. So I got to see how you can scale your business very easily. And one of the main things people need to understand about multifamily is when you get to 5 units or larger, it's now considered a commercial property. All right. So 4 units or less, it's just like you're buying your single family home. But when you get to 5, then it changes the perspective as far as the bank is concerned, because now they're not necessarily looking at you, the borrower, and your borrowing strength. They're looking at how well does that property operate. So they're looking at the rents and the maintenance, and is it a profitable property? So it's a little bit easier to get loans in that sense, because they're not looking, if you have bad credit, it's not as big of an issue. So I've seen people talk about $100 per door, more or less, of cash flow. That means after all the bills are paid, the mortgage, the taxes, repairs, whatever, you have about $100 left over. Now, each market's different. Sometimes the neighborhood can make a difference. You might get a little bit less than 100. Sometimes you'll get more than 100. I've seen people talk about $150 per door. So if you're trying to make, let's say your goal is to make $100,000 a year, then if it's $100 a door, then that's 85 doors. Okay. And that is after taxes, after expenses, after the mortgage, you've got $100,000 of spending cash in your pocket. So
there's some other things to it though, and that, you know, I mean, let's back it up for a second. Let's go to the just to, like you said, when you get to 5, you're in commercial. When you're in 4 or less, according to HUD, right, Department of Housing and Urban Development, 4 units is considered just a residential dwelling.
Right.
Right. And it could be owner occupied too if you live there.
Yes. Yes.
And so I know, you know, a lot of people who are like going, gosh, I'd love to get rental property. And they have this vision in their head that they're going to have a bunch of houses all over the place. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And from a maintenance, from a rent collecting standpoint, from a, you know, setting up different entities for each different property,
Right.
or, I mean, all the different things that are involved in managing multiple properties, it's tough. But if you're starting out, getting a fourplex, which may not be as sexy as a house, right? It may not be as sexy as a house, but one of the things that you said was a key thing is that if they bought a single family house, and matter of fact, I just had this conversation today with one of my clients. They want to buy a house and they want to make sure that they get this much rent every month, $3,500 in rent every month. For our area, it's normal. I don't know wherever you guys are, but who are, you know, our listeners. He wants to get $3,500 a month, and that's his break even afterwards. That gives him about $100 cash flow per month, right? Mm-hmm. But a couple of factors. Number one, if that person moves out, he's stuck with a $3,500 a month expense, you know, or in that case, $3,400 a month expense, and loses out on his $100 cash flow, right? So he goes from being 100% occupied to 100% vacant.
Right.
Right. Like that.
And that's why I was saying, with the single family residence, that move out might cause the whole year's profit to be gone, because now you've got to paint the walls, you've got to shampoo or replace the carpet, whatever else is going on in that house that needs to be addressed. That's money.
Right.
So if you have multiple doors,
but if someone, so let's do this scenario. So I'm an agent. I'm like going, okay, you know what? I've had a good year. I got some money to invest. I'm going to go and find a fourplex, mm-hmm. right? Let's just use 4 as the basis here for a second. I'm going to find a fourplex. My expenses every month, my payment on this, we'll call it, just to keep numbers simple, $3,000 a month. We'll call it that. Taxes, insurance, maintenance, all that stuff, right?
Right. I
move into one of them. So now it's owner occupied. And then I rent the other 3 for, let's just, again, simple numbers, $1,000 a month. Mm-hmm. Okay. So now I've got 100% of my cost of that property being covered.
Right.
Plus, I don't have an additional mortgage payment or rent or something else that I'm paying somewhere else for me to live.
Right. Those 3 units are covering your cost.
Yeah. So in a sense, again, let's just simple numbers. Let's assume my cost would be, me to go rent a similar place would be $1,000 a month.
Right.
I'm at that point now I'm making $1,000 cash flow. And in a sense, right?
And 3 other people are paying for my fourplex.
All of that. Yeah. Right. So, I mean, so this is a brilliant move, but why don't people do it? Why don't people do that more often?
It's a good question. Sometimes it's fear. It's like, oh, I don't want to deal with the 3 o'clock phone call about the toilet overflowing. I don't want to be a landlord. That's because that's work. And sometimes it happens.
And sometimes the other thing too is because I've had this happen a lot where people, they go, you know, I want the house. I want the big house. I want a house with a big yard and the pool and 4 bedrooms and private and and all stuff, and so that I can have friends over and have parties and do all stuff. And we get it. That's the American dream,
Right.
right? But do you start with the big house? You know, and this is a debate. This is always a debate. Do you start with the big house with a $3,000 a month mortgage, and then hopefully one day, someday, you can get an investment property,
Right.
right? Which is tough. Or do you start? Do you use your brain and you go, you know what? I'm young. I'm, I'm motivated. I got, things happening. I'm going to start out with a fourplex, right? And is the other stigma that if you have a fourplex and you're living in one of them, you're just living in another apartment. You own the apartment.
You're the landlord, right?
Well, you own it.
And here's the brilliance of what I see that you're talking about is you can start with the fourplex, you occupy one of the units. And then down the road, there's a way to maybe upgrade to, now I'm going to get a 10 unit place.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
There's a tax code called 1031 exchange. I'll talk about that in a future episode, but there's ways of taking the equity or the value of that. Now, if you've been living in that fourplex for a few years, maybe you've bumped the rents up, you've lowered the costs. Now that money that you spent now has grown. You can now take the profits and help buy another larger unit. And that's where the 1031 exchange, you can delay the taxes, but so that you can use that money, all of it, and get something larger. Now, if you've got a 10 unit place, that moving out and going into a larger place and getting your home that you want is more possible because now you've got 10 units. And if you're getting $100 a door, there's $1,000 of cash. Now, it's not that you're no longer outsourcing or paying out the $1,000 or saving it. You're now getting that into your bank account every month. And that's where it changes. And then you can upgrade again and scale it. And someday you maybe have 100 doors.
Yeah, I'm gonna give you an example. I have a client who did exactly that, where they bought their first property. It was a single family house. They rented it. They bought it. They rented it out, and they just rented it for years until it was paid off.
Oh, nice.
And then what they did was they, now they had whatever the rent was, I don't know, $1,500 a month coming in from that rent. And because that house is paid off, now they had that money that they were saving. They went and bought another house. So now they have two houses that they're collecting rent on.
They just took the equity out.
No. At that point, they didn't even take the equity out. They just took the money that they were collecting from rents.
Okay.
And come up with a down payment.
That's right, because you said it was paid off.
Yeah, to buy another house, right?
Okay.
So now they bought that other house. Now they took the rents from both of them and dumped every single penny into paying off the second house.
Right.
So now they had, and follow me on this, now they had two houses over time. They paid that house off in like 7 years.
Wow, good for them.
Because they took they took everything, just dumped it in, right? Now they have two houses that they're collecting rents on that they were able to come up with a sizable down payment in a matter of 5 months.
Okay.
Right?
Sure.
Bought a third house, repeated that process, and they did that until they had about 10 houses. So now you got 10 houses paid off, and every single time they did it, it accelerated how fast that house was paid off.
Sure.
And I remember at one point in time, and I love this guy. I wish they were still buying, but they kind of got to that point, that age where they're just like, we can't handle it anymore. They every month and a half were coming to me and were buying a house with cash.
There you go.
Just from the rents from all the properties that they were collecting, right? And it's the same thing when you're talking about multifamily units, right? You do the same thing. You get your equity built up in your property or paid off.
Sure.
You take that and you move it up to another thing, like you said, with a 1031 exchange. So now you move up to a 10 unit. And now you're collecting rent from 10 people.
And here's how you can scale it easy. When you buy a unit, we mentioned it last time, you're bumping the rents on a yearly basis. Maybe you're lowering expenses. You're finding ways of generating other revenues. Now what happens is there's something called net operating income. That's your income minus your expensive. There's the difference. There's the profit there. That's how you value how much a property is worth. So as you're making your NOI go up, when you sell it, what you're selling it for goes up too.
Yeah.
So that's what you're trying to do each time. You're trying to add a little value, making it more valuable, and you'll get more money, and then you can exchange that up to a larger scale, or a larger unit, or 20 units, 25, 30, 40, 50, as time goes on.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things that as you get older, you go, gosh, I wish I would have done that when I was younger,
Sure.
but it's never too late to start doing it.
I'm finding I have some teachers that I've gone through, and I'm seeing people that are in their 60s, 70s that are doing this. Now they're doing multifamily. They're doing 50 to 100 units at a time, and what's happening is in the 3 to 5 year period, they're able to actually get rid of their day job. They're able to add equity, and now they've got the flexibility to do more units or more properties if they should choose to. It's never too late. It's just learning how to look at a property and say, okay, yeah, the numbers look good. I think it's a good buy, and they can make it happen.
Right.
You're never too old. That's a good point. That's a very good point.
Yeah, never too old. Yeah. So you're talking about the number of doors, because that's a unique term, right?
Sure.
It's like how many doors do I need?
Right.
So I mean,
how do you? And it's unique for each person. Some person says, I just want to quit my job so I don't have to work anymore. Okay, well, if you're making $60,000 a year, $70,000 a year, you can figure, okay, if it's $100 per door, then you can figure out how many doors you need to make that figure. Some people might want to go, I want to create generational wealth. I want to be able to travel, and so you can buy more doors, and you can add. Maybe you don't buy them all at once. Maybe you buy a little bit at a time. What I found is once you learn how to do a transaction, whether it makes no difference if it's one door or if it's 400 doors, it's still, you look at the property the same way. What are the expenses? What are the income? Are there any other issues that I should know about? And then you figure out what the value is, and you make your offer. Yeah. And so once you get comfortable with that, it's so much easier to say, it doesn't matter if it's a bigger unit. Sometimes people get a little nervous with that when they think, oh my gosh, 100 units, that's huge. But maybe start smaller. Maybe you're going to do 5 or 6 units because that's where you're comfortable, and that's great. But once you do that, then it's easier to.
Well, and coming from a property management background, is it worth it as you start growing your business to have a property manager?
Well, that's what you want to do. That's a good question. You always want to figure when you underwrite a deal. That's when I say underwrite, I mean you're looking at the numbers, you're looking at the expenses, the income, and is it a profitable property? You always want to put in the expense of a property management company, because people that are investing, they don't want to be property managers. They just want to, here's some money and let somebody else do the heavy lifting. So you always want to consider the cost of the property manager as part of the deal. And if it doesn't work with the property manager, okay, let's look at some other property that does work with a manager.
Yeah.
And then your job is to manage the manager and get reports once a week so that you can know what's happening. Because if the manager is a good manager, then you can look and they'll report to you what's going on, and who's moving in, who's moving out, how many applications do we have, and therefore you can make decisions a lot better.
Costs, all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the reason I brought that up is because, when you buy your first fourplex or your threeplex or a duplex, right?
Right.
It's easy for you to go knock, knock, knock. Oh my God, it's time to collect the rent.
Right.
That's easy to do. But as it starts getting more and more and more, yeah, you're like, I've got a regular job. I've got a full-time job. I'm not going to, I don't want to go chasing people for rent, which you shouldn't have to. If you're getting good quality tenants, you shouldn't have to. They know they got to pay the rent every month, right?
Well, and that's okay. Here's the cardinal rule of property management. Qualifying your tenant is the most important thing you can ever do. Run an application, check the credit. There's a criminal background. There's a lot of software programs out there that can give a good quality report. And okay, these people, they pay their bills. They've never been evicted. There's no open bankruptcy or those types of things. And if you see them like that, then 9 times out of 10 you're going to get good quality renters in your thing.
But you don't want to have to deal with them though, or I should say most people. I think that's probably one of the reasons why they're intimidated to get into multifamily is because I don't want to go bother people for rent, and I don't want to have to clog toilets.
If you start out on the right leg and you're consistent with enforcing the rules in your lease, you should put in a late fee. It's due on such a date. It's due on the 1st. And did you hear that?
Yeah.
We have a lightning storm here, so sorry for the down there. Nevertheless, you've got rules in the lease and policies for your fourplex, and you want to be consistent. You don't want to you can pay it a couple of days later. No, you're late. There's a $35 late fee that you've got to pay now.
Right.
Because I see people getting in trouble, and then there's fair housing. Oh, let that one guy slide, but why don't you let me slide? You're not being fair to me. But as long as you're consistent. But here's another thing. Once you get to 100 doors, typically the properties become profitable enough so that you can hire a property manager and a maintenance person full-time. One manager, one maintenance person. Now they're dealing with the leasing. They're dealing with any repairs. So for people, if they can get to 100 doors, then they don't have to change light bulbs and come at 3 o'clock in the morning with a plunger. You've got other people doing that for you.
Yeah, exactly. That's the ultimate goal, for sure. Yeah, and as you get more experience and better, you get bigger, better deals, and you have bigger opportunities and other stuff. And there's other strategies for investing, all across the board.
Sure.
And so, as we progress, we'll continue to explore those for you as well. But next time we're going to talk about 1031 exchange. Is that what we're going to talk about?
Yeah, well, I'll get into the specifics there, like how does that work? Because it's a legitimate tax code for the IRS. And if you're going to defer your taxes, the IRS wants you to do certain things to make sure that you're doing it right. And I'll go into more depth about that.
Right. Cool. Well, anything else you want to include, Matt?
That's all I got for you today. That's
right.
I could talk for hours, but I want to keep it simple.
Same here. And we've got some more great marketing tips for you coming up next episode. So make sure you guys are subscribing and doing all that stuff. Like I said, if you got questions for Matt, you got questions for me, whatever you want to call, debate, talk, share, are curious about our methods and about our other methods that we don't even talk about on the podcast. We're happy to talk about those over the phone. Just go to thepassiverealestateagent.com.
It will also be in the show notes linked to our website and ways to contact us as well there.
Exactly. And then we look forward to seeing you guys on our next episode. Have a great day.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Take care.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to the Passive Real Estate Agent Podcast. Hey, do us a favor and subscribe to us on whatever platform you're listening to us right now. Don't forget the likes and the comments. We always appreciate it. And, it really helps others to find this valuable information. Now, look, there's something that both Matt and I and several of our guests have discovered that has radically changed our real estate job into a truly passive income. And it's a little controversial, and that's why we really don't discuss it on the show. But we'd like to invite those truly entrepreneurial individuals to learn more. Just visit thepassiverealestateagent.com and join one of our upcoming webinars. You'll thank yourself later that you did. Thanks again so much for listening. Take care.